Hi everyone, welcome to my tutorial on Ezio's Pouches from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. And before I get going, I'm just going to warn you, it's going to be a bit of a longer video just because I'm going to be going through details and measurements and stuff like that, to help you out in case you want to make them yourself, if you're interested in doing that. But yeah, so I've already made these pouches before the Ezio trilogy came out, but I was almost done and I was just looking to find the details for the finishing touches. And I started playing the Ezio trilogy about a couple weeks ago when I finally received my pre-order. And I noticed that because the higher graphics in the Ezio trilogy on Xbox One and PS4, I was actually able to make out some more details. And since I'm paying attention to the pouches, I actually noticed in Assassin's Creed 2 playing it that he actually had two of the same pouches in that game. And now that I made it to Revelations, he's got two of the same pouches again, but they're different than in Assassin's Creed 2. And explaining that, he has this pouch here that I've drawn out. This is from Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood. This one's from Brotherhood and Revelations. And then this one here is from all three. Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations. So if you're here just checking it out, but you actually want to make a costume from Assassin's Creed 2 or Revelations, then obviously I can help you out with at least two pouches. But if you're here and you want to do one for Brotherhood like I did, then you're obviously in the right place for all three. So whoever you are, I can help you out. So having said that, what you want to do is get your plans drawn out, get them as to what you want them, and then what you want to do next is get your conversion factor, because you want to transfer all the measurements from the on-screen to real life for you. And how I did that is I used my vambrace here, and I used the vambrace that's in the picture of the tailor shop that's right here in game in the tailor shop menu, and has a close-up shot of his lower back with all three pouches and then the vambrace. And in that picture you just make out these four little bumps that are right here, and on screen they actually end up being 1 5/8 inches apart, these two here. And right now between my fingers it actually is 4 inches on center apart. And so that's what gives you my conversion ratio. And so what you want to do is divide 4 inches by 1.625 or 1 5/8 inches. So 4 divided by 1.625 is the number that I'm going to throw up on the top of the screen, just because it's a long number and I don't want to write that down. I just decided to do this equation every time I want to get a measurement, because I want to be more accurate that way. And now that I have my conversion, I can get my measurements, and then I can start making my templates. And the first template is actually pretty easy to make, pretty straightforward. You can make your front panel and back panel out of it, because this is your front panel of the pouch, and then this is the back panel. It's just two pieces. It's pretty straightforward. And so for the front part, what you want to do is you want to make this line here for the total depth of it, and that's going to be 5 1/4 inches or 133.5 millimeters long. And then once you have that, you want to make a line up here on one end of it, perpendicular, so it's 90 degrees to the first line, and that's going to be 2 7/8 inches or 73 millimeters wide. And then you want to split that half on either side to center the first line. And then you want to measure back off of that to get this line here. And you don't need this line, this is just a measurement to get this line, but to place this line, what you want to do is measure back 3 3/4 inches or 95 millimeters. And now that you have your placement, you can draw this line, and this line is, like I said, it's the widest part of the pouch, and that is 4 3/8 inches or 111 millimeters wide. And again, you want to split that just like you split this one here to center it on your first line. And once you have those three lines, what you want to do now is just join them like you see here on my template. So I went to the widest part here, connected to the widest part there, did it on both sides, and then I connected the widest part there to the center down here. And then I didn't want it to be square and boxy, so I just rounded it a little bit, as you can see here. Just rounded that, and again rounded it, kind of continue through there, and then I probably stopped the curve here, and then I just did a straight line to my point up here. And that gives me the shape of the body of the pouch. Now I want the closing flap piece, which is right here. And that is going to measure at 1 1/8 or 28.5 millimeters up off of your second line that you drew earlier. And you want to do that on both sides. And then you want to find the middle and measure up 1.5 inches or 38 millimeters. And then once you have that, you can measure 1 inch, half an inch on either side for your total of 1 inch or 25.5 millimeters. And again, like I said, you want to split that because you want to center it. And that's going to be where you're going to put your D-ring later on when you finish it. And so now that you have this measurement on either side and you have this measurement, just connect the two lines and you have your angles. And it's easy as that. And then just fold it here like I did, and you have your template for your front and your template for your back. And for your next pouch template, what you want to do is first you want to start out with a rectangle, and that will give you this piece here for the front piece of the pouch. And you want to measure 5 inches wide or 127 millimeters wide by 2 3/4 deep or 70 millimeters deep, and that'll give you your base rectangle shape that you're going to work with. And what you want to do is round off the two bottom corners with like a small can or something to get the rounded corner effect. And now for the back panel, what you want to do is just add on a 1/2 inch on either side. And that again is about 12 millimeters. And find the center and mark up 1 7/8 or 47.5 millimeters. Mark out your inch again for a D-ring. Again, half on either side of that mark. And now to get the shape of the flap, what you want to do, this is how I did it, is I just marked on the page, again, 1/2 inch up, and forget this that I just told you about, because you're not going to need that. Just find out where your center is, measure over 1 5/8 or 41 millimeters, and then just draw a line through that, but mark that, and then where the lines cross, you just cross this line through, and then just make a curved line, and that's what you're going to cut, and just do it on both sides. And now you have your template for that pouch, for your front and back. And for your final template, what you want to do is, I pretty much figured that this piece, it looked like this piece here went around the top, went down the back, and then came at the bottom, and then up the front. So, just kind of like so. Now, the general square shape, which is going to be the back panel, I'm going to start that, is 4 inches 5/8 by 3 3/8 for your height or your depth. And so that's what this is going to look like right here. Here's your 3 3/8 for your depth, and this is in metric 85.5 millimeters. And for the width, like I said, it's 4 inches 5/8 or 117.5 millimeters. And that's your base rectangle. And what you want to do is probably start this out on the center of your paper of a full sheet, and then get it as square as you can, and then use these two edge lines and continue them through both ways, and then run these two lines parallel to the full length of the sheet, because you're going to use this width for all 5 panels. And anyway, once you have your first square drawn in the center, then what you want to do is draw these two out. And these are both the same size because they're thickness panels on top and bottom. And that's going to be 1 3/4 inch thick or 44.5 millimeters. And then once you have both of those, then you want to start working on the two flaps for the front, top and bottom here. And the top is what I'm going to explain right now. The top, what you want to do is measure down 1 3/4 and then mark that, and then you want to split half on either side, but the total width is going to be 1 3/8 or 35 millimeters wide. And then to get the curves that I have here, I just lined up a pickle jar lid to this mark here and to this mark here, and then just traced it to here on both sides. And I figured that'd be way easier than trying to use a compass. But if you want to use a compass and do it that way and figure out the math that way, then that's fine, but I didn't bother with that. So now for the other side, this is actually not the same size, because if you actually figure it out, 3 inches and 3/8 minus 1 3/4 actually ends up being 1 5/8. And likewise in metric, 85.5 minus 44.5 ends up being 41 mils. So now that you have that one for your bottom, you want to get the width. And as you can see here on my drawing, the width of the flap is actually wider than the top flap. So the width for this one is 2 inches and 5/8 or 66.5 millimeters wide. And again, you want to center that. And then choose a small can, center it here, and then just trace it and stop here, and then just draw straight up to the edges of your line and do it on both sides. Now that you have your 3 templates, you want to add a 6 mil flap or a 1/4 inch flap on all edges when you go to cut the material. You don't want to just cut the material based on these templates as is, because these measurements are for the final product, and you want to have edges that you want to sew together, and you want to have excess material, and you also want to have material to fold over for nice rounded edge details, opposed to just having cut edges. And so you want to add, see right here I drew an extra line that says front seam, so that top line there is only used for the front panel for the seam line. And just want to add a 1/2 inch around all sides except for right here. Now I made this mistake, I didn't realize this till after the fact, and I'm going to tell you right now, don't just measure up 1/2 inch, or sorry, 1/4 inch or 6 mil here for this inch flap. You want to make this inch flap at least a 1/2 inch to 1 inch long, or 12 millimeters to 25 millimeters long, to have more than enough room to feed it over. Because what happened with it just being a 1/4 inch or 6 mil is that, as you can see, it kind of pulled it down, and it kind of makes a weird look. It's not horrible, but it's not what I wanted, and it looks a lot cleaner if you just give yourself more material to work with to fold that over. And then again, do that on both of these where you have D-rings. You want to make sure you have enough. And I didn't bother making every template for this because there's a lot of pieces here, but there's a lot of pieces that are just squares and rectangles, and I figure it's pretty easy just to draw squares and rectangles on the material. So with this one is actually already in this one. It's this piece right here, because that's exactly and also these are the same width, and this is basically where that piece goes behind. This flap is right here, and it just comes right in front. So basically that piece is 1 3/4 or 44.5 mil by the 4 5/8 or 117.5 mil rectangle, and then just add your 1/4 inch around that, or your 6 mil around that for your seam lines and details and all that. And for here, this is just a square, 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, or oh no, sorry, 1 3/4 by 1 3/4, or 44.5 mil by 44.5 mil. And then this is 1 3/4 by 1 5/8, or 41 mil by 44.5 mil. And then this one here is the same as this one here, because this piece basically right here, and that's why this is cut, so I can use this same line for both pieces. And that one there is the 1 5/8 for the depth, 1 3/4 for the width, and then just trace this line on and then add your 6 mil or 1/4 inch or whatever you want to add for excess to sew that on the back of that. And then you'll have everything you need for this pouch. And to finish it off, what I used was I measured off 1 3/8, and then that gives me the total length, and that's 35 mils in metric. And then for the width, what I did was 1 1/8 or 28.5 mils. And then once I had the width, then I could get the side lengths, which were 19 mil or 3/4 of an inch. and then I just drew a line diagonally through both the lengths that I have there, as you can see. And then this crosshatch part right here is just the excess material that is sewn behind the top flap, and it doesn't need to be much, probably just about a 1/2 inch roughly, or like 12 mil, something like that. And then again, like, as you can see here, I added the extra 6 mil or 1/4 inch for all the folded over detail, except for the back, because it doesn't need it, it's not exposed. And so that's basically all the sewing there. For these two pouches, you want to make sure that you cut little snips like I got here. I actually cut off a bit of material here, probably did too much, but it didn't touch the sew line, luckily. But you want to make sure you add little cuts in here, because when you fold this inside out, inside in again, the outside corners become inside, and the material will bunch up on you. So you want to make sure you cut some material out of that to prevent that from happening. And likewise on this one here, as you can see on the back. But also, since this is only 1/2 inch thick, again, the strip here is 1/2 inch, or like 12 mil, and like I said, in metric. And then just basically make it long enough to wrap around, and then give yourself 6 mil on the other side, quarter inch on the other side to have your seam lines. And then I just sewn the one side over, because it's only 1/2 inch thick, like I said, and these two actually end up bunching up, and it's actually makes it hard to put anything in. It actually is max size, like my phone was. So I end up sewing the front panel over a little bit. But yeah, I'll just flip these inside in again, and I'll show you the finishing touches. As you can see, I have turned the pouches that were inside out back to inside in, and as you can also see, I've got the detail already done as well. And what I used for this was just a wood burner tool that you pick up at a craft store, and it's kind of like a soldering iron, but it has multiple bits for different effects you're looking for. And this is just kind of a tip I use, is kind of like a pencil tip. And it gave me the effect I was looking for. Yeah, so it actually looks like it turned out pretty good. I'm happy with it. It's my first major leather project for sewing and etching, so it actually turned out pretty good considering. And then there's the other pouch right there. You can see it's got my phone inside, and then in this pouch here, just open it up, and then it's got my wallet inside. And then you can just close it back up. And as you can see, it's pretty easy to do with one hand, because you're probably gonna want to be able to do it with one hand, since this is going to be behind your back on your belt. So, but yeah, that's basically my pouches tutorial. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and see you guys around.